Welcome back to Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also heard on the radio in Las Vegas on 101.5 KDON and that's on Friday nights, Saturday nights at 10 o'clock. On Sunday morning, early mornings, you can catch us on the Bet as well. Scott Branson, your host, along with my co-host, my partner here, that is Mr. Mo Moten, senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report, also Raiders columnist at sportsnaut.com. You can catch him on the interwebs Monday through Wednesday on Bleacher Report Live. So I'll tell you about that more later. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Also follow him on x.com at Mo Moten, Moemoton. You can follow me at LV Gully, LVGULLY, and the show is SNB Today for Silver and Black Today. Thanks for being back with us. Training camp right around the corner, Mo. Boy, we're getting close. The rookies report to the Intermountain Health Performance Center in Henderson, July 17th. That's a week from today. And then, of course, the veterans report on the 22nd. It's coming fast. We're getting in some of these ranking shows. Today, we're going to talk about the top 10 quarterbacks in Raiders franchise history, from Stabler's swagger to Carr's records. We're going to count down the best. We want you to tell us what you think. Make sure you tweet at us. I know they haven't come up with a different word on x.com at SNB Today. Your top 10. Tell us where you agree with us, disagree with us. Drop the comments down below. If you're watching us, by the way, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black Today. Don't forget to rate and review there. If you're watching us on YouTube, same thing. Subscribe, thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the notifications bell. But, Mo, we're getting closer to some football, man.
A little closer to some simulated football.
True.
As you mentioned, the Raiders are going to have they're going to start their training camp in about a week. I'm looking forward to the joint practices with the 49ers as well, because the 49ers defense should have a bounce back year with Robert Saleh back in San Francisco. So that'll be a good test for the Raiders offense with Geno Smith coming in. A lot of young parts on that side of the ball. So interested to see how those joint practices go, as well as preseason. Will Dante Thornton continue to impress people with his physical tools and show that he's ready to contribute right away?
Oh, yeah. We'll see how that goes. Lots of question marks coming up as well for this team, and we'll talk about those as we get into camp. We're going to have a lot of guests coming up soon as we get more in tune with the rhythm of the season. But, Mo, we're talking quarterbacks, greatest quarterbacks in history. We put up a poll on Silver and Black Today as saying that, hey, who's the best quarterback in team history? And even that was creating angst and some passionate responses because of who was there, who wasn't there, all that stuff. So we're going to get through that. But I want to start. We're going to count down from 10 to 1, right? I think that's the best way to do it. We don't want to start with the number one, although I think most people would agree who number one is, but you never know. So we're going to roll through this and just some of the criteria that the show used here, and that is passing yards, touchdowns, win-loss record, playoff success, of course, Super Bowl wins, awards, cultural impact. Cultural impact. So this is not just guys who have the best numbers, okay? They're certainly going to be here too, because clearly that's part of the criteria. But when you look at Raiders quarterbacks, there's a lot of guys, like when we were compiling this list, there's some guys I kind of forgot about and some good years that they had.
It's a being that we did a top 10 list this year, because I know we did top 5, I believe last year. When you get to the back 5, it's all about preference. As you said, it's a subjective list. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I wasn't alive to watch half of these guys while they played. But you could still go back and take a look at some of the things that they were able to accomplish. You talked about cultural impact, statistics, Super Bowls, wins, leading the team to AFC West titles. You can take all of that into account and decide, we were going to have fun with it today. We do disagree on some things. There's particularly one quarterback that you left off that I have on we'll talk about.
Wow. We'll have to see what that one is. That's interesting. Okay. So let's jump in here. Starting with number 10 is a one, Kerry Collins, 5,200 yards, 34 touchdowns, 24 interceptions, and a QB rating of 79.3, a record of 7-15. But I thought in looking at this one, Mo, Collins, veteran stability in some really tough years, and he does rank in the top 10 in franchise passing touchdowns.
Kerry Collins is the type of quarterback he was going to throw, 20 to something interception, 20 to something touchdown passes in a season, but was also going to throw 20 something interceptions in that same season. Raiders weren't very good with him, but he wasn't afraid to throw the ball downfield. One of the most random combinations, quarterback, wide receiver for the Raiders, Kerry Collins thrown to Randy Moss. One of the most random, just you want to think about random combinations in NFL history, that was one of them. Had the yards, as I said, gunslinger. I didn't have him on my list. He didn't make my top 10, but I understand with the yards that he had why he made yours.
Yeah, and frankly, I had here, the one I wrestled with here was Carson Palmer at 10. Because I had Carson Palmer, short tenure for Hostetler, and compared to Palmer, who had 5,500 yards in 23 games. So I could have gone either way. And I'm sure that wasn't the one guy you were talking about, was it? Carson Palmer?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, we'll get to you. I'm sure you'll bring that up when we get to it. But so there I had, Collins. So I had Collins there. Is he in the top 10? Tell us what you agree in the comments or tweet at us on X at SNB Today. All right. Number 9, Jeff Hostetler from 93 to 96, 7,200 yards, 43 touchdowns against 32 interceptions. He had the 1993 playoff win, the last in Los Angeles, by the way, and that clutch 94 game versus the Broncos where he threw for 338 yards and 4 TD. Haas was a gamer, man. 1993, that 10-6 season for the Raiders was huge. He had a short peak, but I think it was worth recognition in coming in at number 9.
Yeah, I have Jeff Hostetler on my list, one spot higher. So he's 8th on my list. Do agree with you. Didn't have a long Raider tenure. It was only 4 years. Did have his Pro Bowl year though with the Raiders. So
yes,
you have to count that. 94 touchdown passes, 71 interceptions. So his touchdown to interception ratio not bad for that era. Jeff Hostetler on my list, probably at 8th instead of 9th.
Yeah, and you can wrestle with this one because you can talk about how clutch he was in the short period of time that he played for the Raiders versus a long tenured quarterback. So that's a fair argument. So tell us what you guys think again. And the last quarterback to win a game is an LA Raider. There you go. At number 8, I have, of course, the great one, George Blanda. I was alive for a few of the years he played, Mo, but I was an infant. But you look at Blanda's numbers: 7,800 yards, 76 touchdowns, 62 interceptions, which surprised me. I forgot about that. And 1970 comeback hero. Of course, he was the AFL Male Athlete of the Year, a Hall of Famer as a kicker quarterback as well. And he led. He was leading comebacks at the age of 43. You look at those. And he looked 63 when he was 43, by the way. You look at those old NFL films, and he fits just the mold so well. But the quarterback role was secondary to kicking. But I thought he was so impactful that I put him in at number 8.
Yeah, I have George Blanda on my list at 10. Mm-hmm. He cracked my top 10 list as number 10 simply because of what you just said. Is he never led the team as a quarterback. He was always the backup coming in. Now, he was a good relief guy coming in. When LaMonica would get hurt, he'd come in, and that's what you want in your backup quarterback. But I couldn't put him any higher than 10. I want to say I disqualified him, but because he never was the primary starting quarterback, I couldn't put him higher than 10th. The Pro Bowl year he had with the Raiders in 1967 was for his kicking. He led the league and kicking percentage, and I believe points scored. So if you're talking about overall Raiders, I would have George Blanda higher. But if you're talking about specifically quarterback, I can't put a backup higher than 10.
All right, there you go. That's a fair point. What do you guys think? Let us know. All right, number 7, Mo. As we get through, we're going to do, of course, as we mentioned at the top of the show, 10 through 6 here, and we'll go back and we'll get some of the difference you have after we get through the list. At number 7, we have Tom Flores, of course, 1960 to 66, 8,800 yards, 70 touchdowns, 82 interceptions, more interceptions than touchdowns. First Raiders quarterback. He was in 1963. He had a 407 yards, 6 touchdown game versus the Oilers. Of course, he's a Hall of Fame coach. He really laid the foundation, I believe, Mo, for the Raiders' identity. And I think even though his stats as a player are one thing, I think this is where it goes to cultural impact, and it goes to, as I said, the identity of the franchise, and then of course what he did as a coach. But as a quarterback, I think it's you're weighing here his historic role versus his modern QB statistics. But I think that he still ranks high on this Raiders list because of his impact.
Right. So that's why I have Tom Flores at 6. So you have him at 7, right?
Yeah,
I have him at, so we're in the same ballpark. I have him at 6. Obviously, in that era, most quarterbacks have more interceptions than touchdown passes. Go look at Joe Namath's numbers. Way more interceptions than touchdown passes. Kenny Stabler, same thing. So you have to look at the era when it comes to the numbers. Of people want to look at that. But speaking of his numbers, as a rookie, led the league, and I believe completion percentage and passer rating as a rookie. Now, this is back in the AFL years, in the 60s. I get it. But the cultural impact boosted him for me as well. First ever starting Hispanic quarterback in professional football. So you have to weigh that in, that cultural impact. And it wasn't overall a bad quarterback in that era for the Raiders. Right. Didn't have the accolades that some of the other quarterbacks on my list have had. But between the cultural impact, his pretty solid rookie year, led some winning Raider football teams, though the AFL was set up differently where it wasn't the same playoff system it is today. But the Raiders had winning records when he was their starting quarterback. And again, first ever Hispanic quarterback in professional football. You cannot downplay that. So
no way.
Number 6 on the list.
Good stuff. Okay. So here's number 6. You ready? I have Mark Wilson. Mark Wilson, 80 to 87, 7,100 yards, 48 touchdowns against 58 INTs. He had a 31-19 record, right? So he started during those 80s glory years, including Super Bowl 28. He was a backup to Plunkett, remember? And he had a solid 85 season going 7-4 with 2,600 yards. But he was a reliable starter in what was a stacked era, 31 wins and a Super Bowl ring as a backup. He's a backup. I know he's not a starting quarterback, but more interceptions and touchdowns. So I'm taking the downside here. Does he edge out Flores and Hostetler? I think so, to be in that top 6. Mo, tell me what you think about this pick at number 6.
So I have Mark Wilson at 9. So I have George Blanda 10, Mark Wilson 9, Jeff Hostetler 8. I have Mark Wilson 9 simply because, again, if you're mostly a backup for most of your career or half of your career, I can't put you in the top 5 or along with Tom Flores, who has such a cultural impact. Mark Wilson, his years really intertwined with Plunkett.
Yes.
Plunkett gets hurt, Plunkett gets benched. It was Mark Wilson. Now, he did lead the Raiders to the playoffs in a year, where he got them to, I believe, against the Patriots, but he didn't play well in that playoff game. 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions in that playoff game. But when he did take over the team and it was his team, Raiders had a winning football team in his end years there with the franchise. But again, when you're mixing and matching, and Raiders had a weird time where they were basically rotating their quarterbacks. Between Plunkett and Wilson. So with his intertwine with Plunkett, it kind of took him down a bit for me, but I can't discount the season when he did take the Raiders to the playoffs.
Yeah, no question about it. Really interesting discussion. Did you have any other differences? Anything else that you didn't mention, Mo, in the minute and a half or so we have left here before we hit the break?
I have Dre Schrader at 7.
Good one.
He's 7 for me. So I'll count it down. 10 George Blanda for me, 9 Mark Wilson, 8 Jeff Hostetler, 7 Jay Schrader, 6 Tom Flores. Jay Schrader, underrated quarterback for the Raiders, in my opinion, led them to the AFC Championship game in 1 year. He was with the Raiders for 5 years. They got to the playoffs twice with Schrader.
Yes.
66 touchdown passes, 62 interceptions. I know he had his time with Washington, but again, led the Raiders to the playoffs twice. Schrader, very underrated Raiders quarterback in his time.
Yeah, and I debated at number 9. I was going to put him at number 9, and I went with Hostetler instead because again, it was short peak versus Schrader, who had more yards and, like you said, some more stats there. And I stuck with that. Just made the choice there. But I agree, another good one to consider in your top 10 when you're looking at Raiders quarterbacks throughout the years. I'm sure people are already wringing hands, Mo. As you can see in the chat, if you're watching us on YouTube, I'm sure it's going pretty crazy there and people calling us crazy. But we're going to step aside here for our first break. When Mo and I come back, we're going to give you numbers 5 through 1, the greatest quarterbacks in Raiders franchise history. Tell us what you think. Give us your list. Put it in the comments below if you're watching us. If you're listening to us, you can also put the comments there on the podcast in Spotify and Apple, wherever you are, or you can send it to us on x.com at SNB Today, at SNB Today. You're listening to Mo and Scott. This is Silver and Black Today. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to segment number 2 of Silver and Black Today. We hope you're having a great day, Raider Nation. Thanks for being with us. We are an Odyssey Sports original podcast, also heard on the air, on the radio in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Beautiful, hot Las Vegas, Nevada right now. If you're listening to us on Saturday evening on KDAWN, that's KDAWN 101.5. You can hear us there at 10 p.m. Yes, as you go nicely into your Saturday night, maybe with a cocktail. If it's me, I'm a cocktail and a cigar. So whatever you're into, I hope you're enjoying it with someone you love or admire. But thank you for being with us. You can also catch us on, and my sign fell. You can also catch us on The Bet, Las Vegas, early Sunday morning. Check listings for the time. Scott Branson back with Mo Moten. We are talking about the top 10 quarterbacks in Raiders franchise history. We made it through 10 through 6. The official list, only because it's here on the side of the show, was Collins at 10, Hostetler at 9, Blanda at 8, 7 was Tom Flores, 6 was Mark Wilson. Mo had some differences there, including Jay Schrader. You had Jay Schrader at 9? Is that what you had, or 8? 7. Sorry, you had him at 7.
Blanda 10 for me. Blanda 10, Mark Wilson 9, Jeff Hostetler 8, Jay Schrader 7, Tom Flores 6.
Okay, there you go. So now you're caught up. So now we're going to go top 5. This is where it's going to get sticky, Mo, because people are going to disagree with some of these takes, particularly around one player, I believe. And you know who that is, because you just can't get away from the Carr Wars. Yes. All right. So let's start at number 5. I have number 5, Rich Gannon. Now, you might have him higher, and I think a lot of people will have him higher. But I have Rich Gannon at 5. Of course, almost 18,000 yards, 114 touchdowns, 50 interceptions, a 45-29 record, 2002 NFL MVP, Super Bowl appearance, 4 Pro Bowls. Of course, just a great guy and so important in Raider history. Gannon's 2002 season, almost 4,700 yards, Mo, was unbelievable. The Super Bowl loss for the top 5 hurts a little bit. Should he be above Derek Carr? It's a good argument. But give me what you got, Mo. What do you think about Rich Gannon at 5?
I have Rich Gannon at 4. I have Derek Carr at 5. I know you probably have it flipped. And
Exactly.
We're probably going to go back and forth on this because I look at it and I look at the resumes, right? Derek Carr had 4 Pro Bowl years with the Raiders. So did Rich Gannon. Whose Pro Bowl years were more impactful?
Yep.
The Raiders didn't make the playoffs with Derek Carr. And I know that's not all his fault. It's a team game. But Rich Gannon was a league MVP.
Right.
I have to take that league MVP year and say he was one of the best players league-wide. Now again, Pro Bowl is what it is. It could be a bit flimsy based on what your preference of what stats mean much to you. But when you're a league MVP, your team makes a Super Bowl with you as the quarterback. You're also, by the way, Rich Gannon, 2-time All-Pro. Derek Carr was never an All-Pro.
No.
I have Rich Gannon above Derek Carr, and I've watched both their careers with the Raiders. all of their years with the Raiders. So this isn't just stats for me. I'm looking at it and saying, whose peak years are more impactful for the Raiders? And easily for me, Rich Gannon.
You're just a hater.
I guess I'm a
No.
Derek Carr hater.
You will get some of that. But nonetheless, I can't argue with your point. I think the way I debated it was Gannon's peak versus Carr's longevity. Of course, Derek Carr is at number 4 on the list here. Because yes, stats and records, and truth be told, I've always tried to cover players that were on the Raiders from an objective point of view. I didn't like watching Derek Carr. So if you guys are going to say, "Oh, you're a Carr lover, you have him over Gannon,"
you're a Kardashian.
Yeah, Kardashian. Thank you. Mo knows from our private conversations, I never liked watching Derek Carr. It was never, to me, I just never got it. But in the ranking, I put him at number 4 over Gannon. And look, Gannon, you can't take away. He's the only Raiders quarterback with multiple 4,000-yard seasons. So maybe I'm disagreeing with myself now as I look at the list. But I reserve the right to do that. But and the Super Bowl loss people hold against him, which I don't think is fair. You got to the Super Bowl. Yeah, winning the Super Bowl is the goal, but you don't hold that against a guy who had multiple 4,000-yard seasons in the silver and black. So to me, yes. And then Derek Carr, of course, the massive amount of numbers, 217 touchdowns against 99 interceptions. He's the franchise leader in yards, touchdowns, 4 Pro Bowls, and sort of got the team through that weird period in between Oakland and Vegas. Never lived up to, I think, what he might have been if not for the injury and that interrupted season. His stats dominate. So I think this goes to a simple debate that you can do on any great quarterback or any very good quarterback in NFL history. The Chargers, Phillip Rivers comes to mind, another guy who didn't win anything, but put up a lot of numbers. How much do you weigh numbers? And this is where I think you mentioned earlier, Mel, this is where I think personal opinion and personal preference come more into play.
Right. So do you weigh the fact that Derek Carr holds multiple passing records with the franchise, with his longevity, more than you say Rich Gannon, who had a shorter stint with the Raiders? For me, it's, what do you play the game for?
Yeah.
And you play it to win, right? You play to win the game, Herm Edwards, right? So the Raiders, I remember being in high school, the Raiders were a perennial playoff contender. Rich Gannon was the quarterback. Now, again, it's not all the quarterback, but we know the quarterback has a large stake in team success and failures. And again, when a guy is voted league MVP, it's saying that he had a large hand in the team's success. So that's what I'm looking at. Again, a 2-time All-Pro, Derek Carr, no All-Pro seasons, a league MVP, in the playoffs consistently. I can't put Rich Gannon below Derek Carr. Derek Carr is 5 for me, Rich Gannon 4.
Yep, that's a good one. Okay, there you go. So we're at 4 Derek Carr. That's the controversial, the Gannon Carr.
Yeah.
I listen, if you disagree with any of the top 3, I wouldn't be surprised with maybe a couple here, because I actually considered it, even though some of you would consider it sacrilege. But at number 3 of Daryl LaMonica, the Mad Bomber from 1967 until 1974, 17,000 yards, 148 touchdowns. Of course, he was 2-time AFL MVP, as well as appearing in Super Bowl II, which the Raiders lost. His 62 wins and just his ability to throw the deep ball in an era where it was just, Al Davis had just started to do this and revolutionize the game, and you still see it today. Daryl LaMonica defined the AFL Raiders. No ring, I get that, but he was phenomenal.
So this is where some people are gonna get crossways with me and disagree, and that's fine. I don't know how many. I see a lot of Raider fans say this guy should be in the Hall of Fame, that guy should be in the Hall of Fame. In my opinion, LaMonica should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know it was the AFL years, but he has 3 AFL titles. I know there aren't Super Bowl titles, but 3 AFL titles. He led the league twice, and I believe passing, I have it here, led the league twice as a passer in passing TDs. in an era where a lot of the quarterbacks, as we've mentioned in this show, had more interceptions than touchdown passes. That wasn't the case with LaMonica. His touchdown to interception ratio was in the positive. And as you said, throwing the deep ball, I think that would still work in today's NFL.
Oh yeah.
But I think LaMonica, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to fans, but I don't think LaMonica is respected as much as he should be because he played, way back in the AFL times, the 1960s. If he had played in the 70s or 80s, I think more people would have LaMonica possibly number 1 on their list. But I have LaMonica number 2. I have Jim Plunkett 3.
Yeah, see, I that's where I was going, and I switched it the last second. So you and I are of like mind there because I think, and again, history, especially for younger fans, not picking on you, but younger fans just don't understand. So I think you need to go back and look at it if you haven't, to be fair to you, and see not only how good he was and how well he performed, but how that was the basis of the whole vertical Al Davis approach to tackle football and offense. Okay. So you look at that and what he was able to do. Oh, did I mention where he went to college? So he also most 62, 16, and 6. Remember, they had ties back then. So who knows? He might have had some more wins had they been able to, and some losses. But 62 and 16, man. I mean, that's phenomenal. We talked about Derek Carr being 63 and 79. Some of the other guys, some good records. But Darryl LaMonica's there. And yes, I could make a very strong case for him to be number 2 above. But because of recency and because of a Super Bowl win, which is just, obviously the most coveted prize, wasn't around when he played, but towards the end he was. But anyway, Jim Plunkett at number 2, as you mentioned, we have them flip-flopped. 12,500 yards, 80 touchdowns against 81 interceptions, 38-19 record, 2 Super Bowl wins, Super Bowl 15 MVP, and 8-2 playoff record. And his playoff heroics too. I mean, to me, that's I guess why I put him at 2 instead of 3, Mr. Moten, was the fact that he not only won the Super Bowls, but he also performed at such a high level in high pressure situations.
Right. So he was the proverbial, he was Rich Gannon before Rich Gannon. So
correct. That's a good way. Yes.
So
yes.
You talk about quarterbacks who started their career somewhere else, then come to the Raiders and have a career rebirth and elevate themselves. Right. That was Jim Plunkett, Patriots number 1 overall pick in 1971, if my memory serves correct. As you said, 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl 15 MVP, by the way. Not only was he on the Super Bowl winning team, but he was the MVP in one of those wins. So you can't take that away from him. I'm not downplaying Jim Plunkett at all.
No.
And a lot more people were alive to see Jim Plunkett play. And I think that plays into why he's higher than LaMonica on the list. But I'm not downplaying 2 Super Bowls and the Super Bowl MVP. But when I compare him and LaMonica, again, with those, he still had those AFL titles with the passing numbers, whereas Jim Plunkett's passing numbers aren't as good as LaMonica's.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we could go all day about the differences. But Jim Plunkett, obviously a great. Do you agree with Plunkett at 2 and LaMonica at 3, or do you agree with Mo and flip-flopping those? Again, drop your list in the comments below. Your top 10. Give us your top 10, at least your top 5, or make sure you tweet at us on x.com at SNB today. We want to hear what you guys have to say there.
And again, right. I know people, really quick, I know people want to say, Mo, you just said it's all about winning football games and Plunkett has 2 Super Bowl titles. I'm just saying, don't forget those AFL years where LaMonica won those AFL titles. That counts for me.
It does count. Yes, because before you had the NFL, AFL at the time competing. And that's another thing. If you don't know the history of the 2 leagues and go back, of course, Al Davis was the last commissioner of the AFL before the merger, all that stuff. If you don't know that history, go back and read it because it's fascinating and you'll see, especially on the AFL side, how competitive it was, right? Not that the NFL wasn't good too, but the AFL was extremely competitive. It was the more innovative league. That's where the offenses came from, the vertical offense and Al Davis and, of course, Sid Gilman. All those guys were Amazing. So go back and look at it because I think you're right, Mo. It's a great point to make. All right. At number 1, of course, is Jamarcus Russell. No, I can't. Number 1 worst quarterback. Yes. Number 1 quarterback, just without any doubt. Although I'm sure somebody's going to disagree. That somebody might put Plunkett here or put LaMonica here. And that is, of course, Ken Stabler, almost 20,000 yards, 150 touchdowns. He had a 69-26-1 record. Of course, won the Raiders' first Super Bowl in Super Bowl 11. He was a 1974 NFL MVP, a Hall of Famer. Also, you just talk about so many of the moments in Raiders history, from the Holy Roller to I mean, all the stuff that you know about the Raiders' history, Ken Stabler was there. He was integral in it happening. And so the Snakes ring, his swagger, his 69 wins, just to me, make him untouchable, Mo.
Right. And I think a lot of people have a Snake as their top Raider quarterback, first quarterback with the Raiders to win a Super Bowl, starting quarterback, Super Bowl. So there you go. There's your cultural franchise impact there. Again, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the touchdown interception ratio in that era.
Nope.
Again, Joe Namath had a worse touchdown interception ratio than Ken Stabler, and he was easily in the Hall of Fame in 1985, I believe. It took a while for Stabler to get in. But finally was in, led the NFL in passing yards twice, 10-year career with the Raiders. So this wasn't one of those short stints. Actually, one more year than Derek Carr was there.
Yeah.
So there you go. He has the longevity. He has the Super Bowl. He has the franchise impact. He has the cool name. The style of play. So there you go. You have all of that wrapped into one. Hall of Famer, of course. LaMonica, not a Hall of Famer. Plunkett, not a Hall of Famer. So he has that also on his resume, being a Hall of Fame player.
Absolutely. And again, I just think 5 straight AFC championship games. Remember that as well. I mean, in addition to the 2 Super Bowls, he had everything, Mo. If you think about it, I mean, coming out of Alabama, what a great college quarterback he was. And then what he does in the NFL. And of course, all the stories and all the fun and the craziness that was the Raiders during that period. There's no brainer there too. So recap of the top 5: Gannon, Carr, and in Mo's list, it's Carr, Gannon, right?
Yes. Carr 5, Gannon 4, LaMonica 3.
Okay.
Plunkett 3, LaMonica 2.
Yes. Stabler 1.
1.
Yes. And on my side, it was Gannon, Carr, LaMonica, Plunkett, and then Stabler at number 1. Wow. Just, these quarterbacks all had you either going crazy or in a good way or in a bad way, but all contributed greatly to the success. Again, who's your number 1? Who's your top 10? Let us know in the comments below. Also, make sure you can post it to us on X at SMB Today, or wherever you interact with us. You can find us there and make sure you get us list. All right, we're going to take our final break here. Come back, we'll talk a little bit about what we just talked about, the top 10 list, and some of the things that you see people say about the Raiders and their quarterbacks and personal favorites and all that kind of stuff. And maybe some guys we'll talk about that didn't make the list. And we'll get to some of your phone calls on the Raider Nation switchboard. So don't go anywhere. It's Scott, it's Mo, it's Silver and Black today on the radio, 101.5 KDON in Las Vegas, and Odyssey across the sports network as a podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's time for the home stretch here on Silver and Black today. Segment number 3. The Raider Nation switchboard is coming up. We're going to get to some of your calls that we can fit in here. Also, do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black today. Don't forget, rate and review. We appreciate that very much. Turn on that auto download. That way you get the show every time you want. If you're listening to us on the radio, thank you. You can also listen to the podcast during the season. We have multiple shows a week, in addition to 10 p.m. on KDON in Las Vegas, as well as I think it's 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in Las Vegas. Check the listing on The Bet on Sunday morning. So if you're up early because you just can't wait to watch the Raiders and you're just can't sleep, you can re-listen to the show over on The Bet, HD2 in Las Vegas as well. Odyssey stations all. Thanks for being with me, Scott Branson, along with Mo Moten. We are talking about Raiders quarterbacks. We just went through the top 10 list. But was there any quarterbacks who almost made the list? I mentioned Carson Palmer as one of mine. Anybody else that almost made the cut for you?
No, I didn't have any. I honestly,
No Gardner Minshew?
no, I did. The Raiders quarterback, the other Raiders quarterbacks that I guess were in contention just didn't have a long enough tenure with the team. I mean, I know you had Collins on the list. It was 2 years. Campbell had like a year and a half. He got hurt. You talk about some of the, the post Derek Carr has been a revolving door at the quarterback position. Dante Culpepper had a year. You have these one-offs, these two-offs. I just couldn't put any of those guys on the list over guys like, George Blanda and Mark Wilson, though he was a backup and kind of rotating with Plunkett. He did have a role on some good football teams. So I couldn't put any of those guys who had a short stint and just didn't have much impact on the Raiders winning football games, Carson Palmer, Kerry Collins, on the list with some of these guys who were more accomplished and were on winning football teams.
And that's the thing you realize, and I think going through the list in preparation for the show, Mo, was how much the Raiders, they had all these great quarterbacks. And of course, you get into that top five, and without a doubt, the top four, and they're no-brainers. But you look at the history of the franchise over the last 35 years, and you see why they struggled, right? You see why in a league where you need quarterback play, of course, you had pockets. You had the stability of Derek Carr. They didn't win. And then you also had, of course, the resurgence of Rich Gannon. That was the other period of time where they had some success. Outside of that, they haven't. And primarily, you can see this. You would have a good year by a journeyman quarterback, but it wasn't the kind that was going to elevate you. You and I talk about it all the time on this show that you can be a good quarterback, but if you want to be a great quarterback, you have to take your team on your shoulders, and you have to be able to lead them to victory, which all the greats have done. Whether you're talking about Kurt Warner, whether you're talking about Tom Brady, any of those guys who've done it, that's how they've done it. And the Raiders just haven't had that. And now you're in a situation where the Raiders are in a new mode where they're bringing in another veteran quarterback who's had some success as sort of a top level bridge quarterback, if you will, in Geno Smith. But it's no wonder when you go through the list of quarterbacks, it's not as bad as the Cleveland Browns, clearly, but it's not also very far from it.
It's not. For me, the list was very easy when it comes to, like, if you were to put these guys in tiers.
Yeah.
For me, the top three is very easy. Stabler, LaMonica, Plunkett. And you can have Plunkett over LaMonica. I wouldn't quibble with you, but I gave my reasons why I have LaMonica over Plunkett, even though Plunkett has the 2 Super Bowl wins. Then for me, Rich Gannon is like a tier 2, where he didn't necessarily win. He didn't have, but again, the league MVP, 2-time All-Pro, you can't ignore that. And then Derek Carr, for me, has to make the top 5 because he does have those records. He does have the longevity, and you have to respect that. Then Tom Flores comes behind Derek Carr because though he didn't have the numbers, the cultural impact is there. I'm not counting what he did as a head coach. I want to make that clear. This is not an overall Raider list. This is strictly passing quarterback. If you're looking at Tom Flores strictly as a quarterback, he's 6 on the list. If you're looking at what he did as a head coach, and of course he's much higher. But I think really quick, Scott, Schrader and Hostetler are the guys that I kind of came up watching. That was kind of my era when I was a young kid. My first full season watching Raiders was with Hostetler. But I do understand what Schrader did, leading them to the playoffs, an AFC Championship game appearance. Those two guys didn't have long stints, 4 and 5 years, but they were decent quarterbacks. And then again, at the bottom of the list, I have, your backups, George Blanda and Mark Wilson, mostly a backup. And that's how I kind of tiered it, my top 10.
And totally, I agree with you there. And I think that you look at somebody like Schrader, who's a friend of the show. He's been on the show many times. Yep. He really was a big acquisition for the Raiders when they went. And then, he started and then he sat and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think this is where you look at it. And you also have your favorite quarterbacks. I was talking to a Raider fan who listens to the show, Dan, and he was saying, man, I always thought if they gave Vince Evans more of a chance. Now, Vince Evans did, he had his chance in Chicago, didn't go really well. Then he later played with the Raiders. But he was a slick guy. And we all have players like that, where it's like, oh, if they only had this chance, this opportunity to do more. But nonetheless, the list, I'm sure you guys, some of you disagree with some of them and agree with some of them. And that's what these discussions in the offseason are all about. So it's great. Really quick bit of news I want to get to before we get to some of the calls here is that there was a report out that that Mark Wahlberg may be preparing for a part ownership with a buy-in to join Tom Brady with the Raiders. I don't know the veracity of this report, but he teased it in a TV show he was in, Mo, called Card Shopping. I'm not familiar with it, but he kind of teased that. He said, it's crazy because I know people are going to give me a lot of crap for this, but I live in Vegas because he lives in Vegas now. Tom's got a piece of the Raiders. A lot of my friends got a piece of the Raiders. I went to 6 home games last year. I didn't make it to the New England game because I live far away. My golf cart just got painted black. I don't even know it. And so he's kind of joking about this and hinting at this possibility. And we've known Mark Davis obviously sold, or there was some partnership changes within the Raider organization. So very interesting. The Raiders may have another celebrity owner coming up with Mark Wahlberg.
Raiders going Hollywood?
Going Hollywood, back to LA, but just relocated up I-15 in the desert. I mean, pretty interesting, but we're going to get to that. We're going to get to a lot of news next week as we start to get into camp as well, but we want to make sure we take some time to get to some calls, at least a few calls here today with some all-star callers, some of our regular callers. By the way, you can be part of the show. 702-900-7869 is the Raider Nation switchboard. Leave your message. I want to hear your reaction. I think we'll get a lot of them, Mo, because there's got to be somebody's out there going to argue for a quarterback we didn't even mention, and that's cool. But call in 702-900-7869, 702-900-7869, and you can be on next week's show, and we'll get to that. All right, here we go. Our first call is our buddy Terrick up in Chicago. At least that's where he lives. We'll see if he's there or if he's out gallivanting the country on business trip. Here he is, Terrick.
What's up, Scott and Mo? This is Terrick. Hope you gentlemen are well. Checking in with you guys from Chicago. It's hard to believe that the rookies report to training camp in only 9 days. Wanted to comment about what Murph said about the experience in Oakland, and I absolutely loved everything he had to say. Vegas will never be able to replicate what Oakland was to the Raiders and vice versa with the fan base. It would be the game day experience. I've been out there a couple times for some games. We were we were just perennial contenders. We were winners. We had so many great memories, like the Heidi game, and it was an absolute religion in Oakland. And when you talk about the move to Vegas, it's never going to be what it was in Oakland, but that's okay. We're not going to be the hottest ticket in town. We compete against shows and casinos and eateries, and it's just a big party city. So unless the Raiders become literally big time winners, I mean, the solution is to win, start getting winning records, start competing for division titles, punch your ticket to the postseason on a consistent basis, and then contend for Super Bowls. That's really the only way. But Vegas is an definitely exciting sports venue. When you talk about the Golden Knights, the Aces, the Athletics coming in 2028, rumor has it they will have the next NBA franchise there. You got legalized gambling there. So it's definitely becoming a big sports mecca, and it's certainly exciting. Mo, I loved what you said about the Raiders as far as the fourth place finish. Yes, 6 games back last year, everybody making the playoffs except for us is just ridiculous, winning 4 wins. And even if we double it to 8, there's no guarantee that we're going to make any movement in our division. I will say, however, that what the Raiders do have going for them this upcoming season is I do think that they do match up well against their division opponents. I mean, whenever they typically play Kansas City, the Donkeys, and the Chargers, they're typically close games. I mean, the Raiders can go toe-to-toe with all 3 of those guys. Thank goodness we have a competent head coach, a competent coaching staff. We had a great draft, and we have a legit play caller in Chip Kelly. So I think we can go toe-to-toe with all of those guys, regardless of whether we're at home or on the road. It'll be exciting to see. I think the Raiders will certainly, I expect them to go at least 500 in their division this year, but that might be premature. I could be way off base with that. Hope you guys are having a fantastic summer. I'm loving all you guys' summer coverage. Looking forward to training camp right around the corner. You guys have a great rest of your week. Looking forward to your show. Have a wonderful day, guys. Go Raiders. Bye-bye.
All right. There's Terrick with his comments on our discussion last week on how Vegas will never be Oakland. And I agree with him. Nothing more to add to that. But yes, it takes time to develop. By the way, being a perennial contender and all that stuff that built that culture in Oakland. Remember, the Raiders, the last time they were perennial contenders was 42 years ago. And that was in Los Angeles, right? But the Oakland fans never abandoned the Raiders when they left, which is pretty remarkable. And then, of course, going back to when the franchise started in those golden years at the beginning, clearly all Oakland. And then after that, going through the last time they had success, really in 2002, great success. So yeah, there's no debating that. And I think that he's right about Vegas growing into a bigger sports city, and you'll see the fan base there mature, and you'll see new things happen. So it will never be Oakland, nor should you want it to be, because that's a special thing. You can't change it. You can't erase it. You can remember it. You can fondly remember it, but I don't think that Vegas will ever be close to it because it's not Oakland.
Well, if you're talking perennial contenders, you can also count the Rich Gannon years where they were
for sure. Those 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I will, to Terrick's comment, I will also say it's funny he brought up the division record because I talked about this on my Bleacher Report Live Tuesday night, and I basically asked the chat, how many division games did the Raiders win? And I'm with you, Terrick. I think the Raiders can win 3. I think they can at least split with each of all their rivals because they upgraded at two key positions. There's no longer a complete disadvantage for the Raiders at quarterback. There's no longer a complete disadvantage for the Raiders at head coach anymore. They've closed those gaps. We'll see what it looks like in the record books and the standings, but they've definitely closed the gap when it comes to head coaching and quarterback disparity. And if you got the head, remember we always say this, if you get the head coach and the quarterback right, that is a start to
huge,
potentially a playoff team and a playoff run.
No, and that's where I agree with both you and Terrick, which is with the coach and the quarterback. Yeah, I don't think they get swept in the division. Like you said, splitting in the division is very feasible. But he brought up the point again, too. It's like if they double their wins, which would be very good, you're at 8 and you're still probably looking you're on the outside looking in on the playoffs, and that's okay. And then a couple more games go your way and you're at 10 wins, then you're making noise. So I think the coach and the quarterback are massive because over the last several years, you've just seen this disaster at the head coaching position. And now you have somebody who's got not only the bona fides, the success, all that stuff to come in there. Doesn't matter how old he is. You don't lose the mindset that he's got. So good job. Appreciate the call, Terrick. We're going to hit Terrick's buddy, Yandog. Here's Yandog, just up the river from Mo.
Hey, Brother Scott, Brother Mo, this is Yandog. Hey, listen, when I talked to you guys last week or so, I did have a little bit of a problem, but some laryngitis or whatever, and I know I didn't feel the same. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you, I was talking to my buddy Terrick, and I told him if I could bring this up to you guys, that you'd probably like it. But I have a silver and black jersey with number 57. That's the year I was born. All right, and I became a Raiders fan in 67 when I was 10. And I had my special made jersey with the 57, and I have Yandog on the back. I remember going to a Buffalo Bills game because I live up here in Buffalo now, surrounded by Bills fans. And they saw me with the shirt, and they asked me, who's Yandog? And then I told them all, I'm Yandog. That's my nickname. And I'm a diehard Raider fan, and I love it. And that's when I was up there, when I had my face painted half silver and half black.
Nice.
I just thought I'd let you guys know. I thought that was pretty cool. But that's what I have as a jersey. And when I leave this earth someday, that's where I'm going to be going, with a silver black jersey on me. But also, to correct myself from last week or 2 weeks ago, I kept saying Dante Johnson. I forgot it was Dante Thornton, so I had to correct myself on that. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to the season. Like I said, you guys are great. Like I said, I feel like you guys are family to me, and I enjoy calling your radio station. So that's about all I've got to say. And go silver and black, and I think we're going to do all right. I'm looking at still 10, maybe 11 wins, 11 and 6. That would be great. Anyway, this is Yandog, over and out.
Yan Dog, I love it, man. You got to send us a picture in your jersey with your face painted.
Yeah.
You gotta send it in.
We got to see that. We got to see that.
We got to see that. By the way, he talked about he's got his jersey number 57. Some great Raiders to wear number 57. Jerry Robinson, of course. More recently, Markel Lee. Go back in the golden age of the Raiders before 80. John Huddleston, Will Compton, of course, wore it when he was his brief time with the Raiders, as well as Greg Blankenship back at that 76. And one of my favorite names in Raider history. He only was there a little bit, but Ray Armstrong. Remember Ray Armstrong?
Remember Ray Armstrong?
Yes, there you go. Anyway, Yandog, good stuff there. And repping in Buffalo, we got to hook him up with Evan.
I was gonna say that he's up in Evan's neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Also, quick question to Yandog: where does he have Darryl LaMonica in his all-time Raider quarterbacks? Because he said he became a fan in '67.
So he watched him.
LaMonica had his heyday year, so he watched him.
That was the first quarterback he got into, obviously.
Where do you have Darryl LaMonica? I have him number 2 among Raider quarterbacks. I have him ahead of Plunkett slightly by a hair. Willing to see a person who's watched Darryl LaMonica. Where does he have him ranked?
Absolutely. Yeah. Give us your list. Don't let us off the hook here. Tell us what you think on both sides of it, and we'll let you know, and we'll comment on it. Also, you can call in 702-900 7869 702-900 7869, and you will be on next week's show as we gear up for about the next 3 weeks. We'll get into camp, and then once we get through the preseason, we'll go to we're going to have 3 to 4 shows a week. So get ready for it. We're getting ready for it. We're trying to get the sleep in as we can. But anyway, we appreciate all the calls this time. We appreciate you listening in to Silver and Black today as we close out this edition. Mo, let everybody know what you got coming up this week so they can keep track of you.
So brace yourselves for this. Sports Not next week. As usual, I have an article there every week. I have an article up there right now. 3 factors that could make or break the Raiders season. Check that out. There are 3 position groups I highlighted specifically. The Bleacher Report Lives will be on pause for now. I am going on a lengthy darkness retreat from video, at least on the Bleacher Report side. Taking a bit of a break, taking a bit of a vacation from Bleacher Report Lives. But I plan to be back in August around the preseason when there's some football to talk about. So don't go anywhere far. Just taking a bit of a break, going on my Aaron Rodgers darkness retreat.
There you go. Ayahuasca?
Maybe. We will try it.
All right. Want to tell you how much we appreciate you guys listening in to the show. We will be back next week on both the radio, 101.5 KDON in Las Vegas, as well as the Bet Las Vegas. And anywhere you get your podcast, just look for Silver and Black Today. We are an Odyssey Sports podcast. I want to thank our producer, Mike Robier, my co-host, Mo Moten. God, the last 2 weeks, Mo, I close the show out. I'm stumbling over my words. I just don't want it to end. My co-host, Mo Moten, and our executive producer on the radio in Las Vegas, which is Mr. Mark Bonilla. Thanks to him as well for keeping it going out in the desert. For all of us here at Silver and Black Today, have a great week. We'll talk to you next week, Raider Nation. Be well.